Here in the U.S., we have Death Valley, Arizona, and there's Happy Valley in Pennsylvania, home of Penn State, go Lions. Even a Sun Valley, the ski mecca in Idaho. But to find a solar valley, I went to China. This is where the Hemin Solar Corporation has a solar hotel, a solar conference center, a solar university, and an entire team of green-jacketed solar employees, eager to show me why it all works so well. Among them, engineer Wang Jijian.
You can see a factory.
And it's worth looking. Solar Valley is a microcosm of China's entire clean energy industry, the fastest growing in the entire world.
China is extremely important for all kinds of obvious reasons. What's happening in China is shaping the world.
Half the world's top 10 solar panel companies are Chinese, and the country has a third of all the wind turbines on the planet. We have the same clean energy resources that China does. The sun shines a lot here. We have, especially today, pretty considerable wind. Why is that country leading the way? Why aren't we?
Well, it's really very much part of the policy framework that the Chinese government has created domestically.
And the seeds for that green policy, they grow from three separate root systems: power, profit, and the planet. China has to keep up with its voracious appetite for electricity. It must generate more power.
China does everything big. I mean, China's power sector is growing at an extremely rapid rate.
Right. China's power demand, already #1 in the world, it's growing about 15% a year. That's an issue Chinese clean energy company ENN spotted almost 20 years ago.
Our core business was energy service. Then we saw that China had a huge opportunity in renewable energy.
And huge incentives from the central government, chief among them feed-in tariffs. Beijing charges customers a bit more for electricity and then guarantees a certain price to the companies that produce that electricity from renewable resources.
Renewables is still a market-oriented business. What the government did is just to make this influence bigger.
Beijing policy puts a premium on rapidly developing the clean energy sector. More new wind and solar plants than any other country.
It's a very high rate.
But isn't that something like artificial inflation because of the government's incentives
Well, yeah, of course, because renewable energy resources are not competitive at all.
Exactly. They're expensive, precisely why the government has to help. In the U.S., electricity demand is essentially flat. Utilities just don't need much new power. So Congress hasn't funded long-term policies for clean energy. Beijing has.
The government is supportive of companies like ENN. I think the government strategy is based on companies.
The obstacles? Well, China is desperate to build more transmission. Nearly half of its wind turbines aren't even connected to the grid. No one's getting power from them. And clean energy supplies only a small fraction of China's demand. Solar and wind, they produce just 1% of China's electricity. The U.S. total is about 3%. As striking as some of the solar arrays can be here in China, the most eye-catching aspect about China's solar industry may be the manufacturing numbers. By the end of 2010, China will produce more than half the solar panels in the entire world, and of those, 95% will be exported outside of China. So, the country is profiting from clean energy development, but Beijing stands accused of not playing fair, giving sweet land deals to Chinese clean energy companies. Off the coast of Shanghai, I visited the Donghai Bridge wind farm, several dozen gigantic turbines that started generating power just last summer. Turbines manufactured using only Chinese components.
We think it's reliable to use Chinese suppliers for our projects.
It was also the law when the bridge was built. Chinese parts for Chinese wind turbines, back when the government greenlighted the Donghai project 3 years ago. In December, the White House filed a case with the World Trade Organization, accusing Chinese clean energy trade policy of violating world trade rules, an accusation China strongly disputes.
Foreign suppliers were considered, but one, their products were much more expensive, and two, Chinese companies were ready to build the same quality turbines.
Beijing says it's backed off that rule, but other clean energy trade policies remain, like disqualifying foreign-owned wind companies from working on offshore projects. Beijing cites national security concerns. Last year, according to the Alliance for American Manufacturing, the U.S. lost 500,000 manufacturing jobs to China. The scene at this manufacturing facility in Solar Valley, workers without helmets, without eye protection, working this close to intense flames. This is the kind of thing the Alliance complains about.
We have world-class technology for concentrated solar, the biggest quality control system in the world, which improves quality.
That's the company line, but questions linger about Chinese quality. And the West says Chinese companies are able to sell below cost because of Beijing's subsidies for the clean energy sector. But as these two heavyweights fight for profit, a bigger prize is at stake: the planet. Both countries need to get off of coal or master the technology to clean up its carbon emissions. China now gets more than 70% of its electricity by burning coal, the most polluting source of energy. The U.S. total is about 45%.
I think it's an imperative that we work together, because at the end of the day, having an affordable, reliable, and clean is really what has to happen.
And Duke Energy's trying. The company has clean technology R&D partnerships in place with a pair of Chinese companies, partnerships that could generate jobs and lower costs here in the U.S.
China is investing in the clean energy revolution. They intend to be one of the world leaders. The United States needs to be a world leader as well.
But right now, it looks like we're following. Back to the Donghai Bridge. The Chinese put this offshore wind farm, their very first one, online back in July. The U.S.? After a decade of legal wrangling over this site near Cape Cod, Massachusetts, the U.S. has yet to plant even a single turbine in any of its coastal waters. In China? The wind is so strong here on the East China Sea, and this project so successful, that the company behind it have decided to build a second wind farm. And it didn't have to look very far to find the next site. On just the other side of the Donghai Bridge, construction should begin by the end of this year on phase 2 of this project. And phase 2 will be just as big, if not even larger, than what's already in place. But maybe a clean energy win for either country could be considered something of a win for both. Carbon dioxide emissions, whether they come from Shanghai or Chicago, they all contribute to global warming. And don't we all, ultimately, want the same thing?
Our son, our grandson, have blue air.
Blue sky?
Yeah, blue sky.
Yeah. Blue sky. Ah, a beautiful sight in any language. In Dojo, China, Tyler Suiters, Energy Now.